people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video we are doing my May wrap up. These are all the books I read in the month of May. I read a total of 11 books in May. Now 9 of those I completed, I finished. We can talk about them. 2 of them I ended up not finishing, but I don't want to call them DNFs. I want to call them down for now because I do plan on getting around to them eventually, just not anytime in the foreseeable future. So we'll talk about those 2 books at the end. So in total we have 11 books to discuss. Let's get into it. So what kicked off the month for me is My Summer Darlings by May Cobb. And I don't own a physical edition of this book, although if I do find one at the thrift store I will be picking it up because I absolutely love this, and this is such a fun mystery thriller book. May I found a new auto-buy mystery thriller author. She's coming out the book in 2023 and I'm like, okay, yes, I'm gonna buy it, obviously, because I liked The Hunting Wives by her and I really enjoyed My Summer Darlings as well. I'm not saying they're 5-star mystery thriller reads and they're just like, oh my god, and amazing, but they are fun, bingeable summer reads, specifically My Summer Darlings. So in this book, you are following a group of housewives and they're all married, they have children, and then this hot, sexy single man moves into the neighborhood and they're all who's he? And they all start flirting with him, and that's all I can tell you because I don't want to get into spoilers, but it is so much fun. It is definitely domestic thriller. Like, if you like the Real Housewives, it's like Real Housewives drama. There is like cheating on spouses, so like if that's a trigger for you, like don't read this book. It was honestly just so much fun to read this book. It's a great bingeable read, a great listen as well. So if you listen to the audiobook, I did the audiobook and I enjoyed it, so recommend this one. The next book I read this month is Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. I read this book to do explaining the plot of Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, so if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. This was such a fun time. It is the second installment in the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy, and I was a little confused because going into this trilogy, I thought it was going to be similar to Truly Devious, in which you have one mystery that spans across 3 books, but in this series, each book kind of has its own mystery, although you do need to read them in chronological order because at least with this one, there's a lot of references to the first book that obviously you wouldn't understand or would be spoilers had you not read the first book in it. So I can tell you the plot to this one without kind of giving away spoilers. We have our main character, Pip, and her best friend, Connor, comes up to her and is like, hey, my older brother Jamie's gone missing and I need you to help me find him. So that's basically what it's about. And I feel like it follows like a pretty similar format to the first book as well, like with the interview style, and I just really enjoyed it. I'm very excited for the last one in the series because everyone says it is so crazy. It is such a fun time and I cannot wait. If you haven't read this series, I highly recommend it. It's just such a fun read and they're so bingeable. You could honestly read each of these books in one day. Well, not like all 3 in one day, but like, you know, 3 days, 3 books type of situation. The next book I read this month is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I have really in-depth thoughts on this book if you watched my reading the top 3 trending books on Goodreads video. In this book, you're following our main characters, Annie and Will. Annie is a florist in the small town of Rome, Kentucky, and her brother is getting married to a pop star. That pop star has a bodyguard, and that bodyguard is Will, the bad boy. And Annie and Will kind of start to form a friendship, and Annie is really bad at dating. She is struggling in her love life, and Will is the known player, the known bad boy, and she enlists his help to help her go on practice dates so that when she meets a guy she really likes, that she'll know how to date and she'll know how to do all the things and she can have a successful love life. But during their practice dating, they obviously fall in love. That's why it's called Practice Makes Perfect. It is so cute. It is so sweet. I absolutely love these 2 together. I thought the banter was amazing. I love the small town vibes of this book. I loved all the side characters, and this is the second book in the series. So the first book is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I read them out of order, okay? I read this one first because I was just so excited by it, and now I'm like, okay, I really need to go back and read When in Rome because I love this small town, and this small town is obviously the small town from When in Rome. So that's coming in June. The next 3 books I read this month all go together, so let's talk about them in the chronological order of which I read them. The first one is The Serpent in the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is the first book in a series, and this book you're following our main character, Oriah, and she is the daughter of a vampire king named Vincent, and she is a human living in a vampire world. During one of the wars that the vampires were going through, Vincent found Oriah in this war-torn area all by herself, and he took her in and raised her as his own, but she's a human living in a vampire world. So he trained her to be a fierce fighter, and he was also training her to enter this tournament called the Kajari that happens every 100 years, and the winner of this tournament gets a wish from the goddess Naxia. But the catch of this tournament is there can only be one winner, and everyone else has to die. So basically it's like Hunger Games, a style tournament, and you have these different trials throughout the tournament, and you are living in close quarters with the competitors. So I guess it's like not Squid Games because they're not all in one room, but like, you know what I mean? Like, they're all living together. They have different trials. So like, think Squid Games, think Hunger Games, add vampires to it. Like, there you go. In the beginning of the competition, you really want to form alliances that will help you through the trial. And that is where Rain comes in. Her love interest. Oh my God, I love Rain so much. So she meets Rain, who is another vampire, and she forms a alliance with him reluctantly because she doesn't trust anybody. She is kind of a very to herself. She doesn't like to trust anyone, especially vampires, because again, she's a human. She's so fragile. She could just get killed instantly by any vampire. So she's really reluctant, but she teams up with them. And not only do they form an alliance, they start to form a romantic relationship. And it's just so cute. I absolutely loved it. Carissa Broadbent's writing is so beautiful, but it's also so easy to understand as well. So even if you're not someone who is typically into fantasy, I think you would have a really easy time reading this book. It is so bingeable. It is so much fun. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I rated it 4 stars. Now moving on to the next one, which is 6 Scorched Roses, also by Carissa Broadbent. This is the novella that she published in between the 2 books in this series. Although you do not need to read this novella to read book 2 in this series, it's just kind of there if you want to read it. It is a standalone fantasy novella, and in this book, you're following Lilith in Vale, and Lilith is a human. She lives in this town that is plagued by a plague. Yep, that makes sense. In this town that is plagued by this illness, everyone's getting sick, and specifically her sister is really getting sick and is on the door of death. So she goes to Vale's house, and Vale lives on the outskirts of town, and he is a vampire. And she has the idea that if she can get his vampire blood, she can form some sort of cure for this plague. And it's kind of about her going to the house. They start forming a friendship, a romantic relationship. It's fun, it's cute, it's short, it's less than 200 pages. It is a breeze to get through. For being so short, I feel like the characters are really fleshed out. You get to know them, you get to care about them, which is one thing I struggle with in novellas. I never really connect to the characters because I'm like, we get so little time with them, it's hard to really care and connect to them. But this novella changed my mind on novellas in general because I really did connect and care about the characters, and I would love for this to be a full-fledged novel because it was so good. It's also super action-packed as well, so you don't have to read it, but I do recommend you read it. The next book I read this month is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. Now, this is the end of this duology. It's the end of this duet, but this world is set to have 6 books. And the third book, we're going to the House of Shadow. So this one says the Nightborn duet. So this book, we were following the House of Night. Next one, House of Shadow, and we're following a main character that we get to know really well in these 2 books. And I absolutely love her, so I'm so excited to read book 3, but it's not coming till next summer. Next summer, I cannot wait. I want it right now. So this book was so much fun. It is 600 pages, but I think it's the quickest I have ever read 600 pages. I was utterly engrossed in this novel and immersed in the world. This is one of those books that I definitely forgot I was reading. I was sitting in my library. We have an air mattress here, and I made it pink and fluffy with all these cute pillows, and I was just sitting on it. I had Gryffindor common room ambiance music playing, and I was just utterly transported to this world. I forgot I was reading, I forgot where I was, and I was just living in the pages of this novel. It was so fun. It is definitely very action-packed, and I can't tell you obviously anything about the plot without giving away the ending of book 1, but I will tell you it's very fast-paced. It is so super entertaining. The next book I read this month is Happy Place by Emily Henry, which me and everyone else in the world had been reading this book in the month of May. And in this book, you're following our main characters, Harry and Wynne. They were in a long-term relationship. They broke up, but they're part of this friend group where everyone's basically a couple. So it's like a couple friend group, right? You have 3 couples, 6 people in the friend group. You get what I'm saying. And they don't tell their friend group because everyone's kind of living in different states. So they never come clean and say that they broke up. And then they go on a friend vacation, and she's supposed to go, Harriet's supposed to go, and then tell all the friends, hey, we broke up. But when she gets there, Wynne is there. And she's like, okay, this is weird. You're not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here to tell them we all broke up. And then 2 of her friends say, oh, we're getting married. And she's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I'll tell them after the announcement. But then the announcement doesn't finish. And then they're like, no, we're getting married at the end of this week, at the end of our friend vacation. And they're like, oh shit, we cannot tell them at all this week that we broke up because we can't possibly ruin their wedding week. So that is what this book's about. It's about them fake dating. And honestly, I overall enjoyed this book. I rated it 4 stars. There's a lot of things I liked about this book. It was entertaining. It was fun. I just love Emily Henry's writing. She has such a way with words. Her banter is really good. But then there's things that I didn't necessarily love about this book. One, being a more emotional romance, which for me is fine. I do like emotional romances, but at that point in the month that I read it, I wasn't necessarily in the headspace to want to read a more emotional romance, and you're witnessing these 2 people grieve an 8-year relationship, so it is a bit sad at times, but also you see them coming back together and all this. Also in this book, there's miscommunication trope, which I don't really like the miscommunication trope, especially for people who've been in a relationship for 8 years. That is one of the things I found really frustrating in this book. Like, there's so much that they say in their, or Harriet says in her inner monologue, that I'm like, bro, just tell him. You've been in a relationship with him for 8 years. Like, how can you not tell him these words? Like, how are you not comfortable enough with this man to tell him everything you're thinking and feeling when you've been with him for 8 years? Like, it made absolutely no sense to me. Like, you think if you were together for 8 years, you would have that level of like vulnerability that you could just say anything to this person. And that part was kind of frustrating for me. The next book I read this month is The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. In this book, you are following a group of survivors. When they were in high school, they went on a class field trip. They were driving in 2 vans. Those 2 vans went off the road, went off a cliff into the water, and no one survived except for these 9 individuals. On the 1-year anniversary of the accident, one of the survivors ended up unaliving themselves, so they decide they're all going to come together, and they're like, we cannot do this again. We have to be there for one another. So every year on the anniversary of the accident, they go to this beach house and kind of just have a get together to talk and just kind of like be friends and basically just get together to like memorialize the accident, talk, hang out, get drunk together, all those different things. But this year something seems off, and that's really all I can tell you, because anything else I feel like is giving away spoilers. Like, there's things in the inside flap that they like say to draw you into the book, but those are things you don't necessarily figure out till 20% into the book. So like, I don't want to repeat those because I feel like they're spoilers. Don't read the inside flap, just go into it if you want to read it. It definitely gives beach vibes because it is a beach house. Look at the cover, summer vibes. But I will say about this book, it is definitely a slow burn mystery. So if you're not someone who is a fan of slow burn mysteries, I don't think you would necessarily like this book. For me, I thought it was really slow. I didn't really like it. Honestly, I was going to rate it less than a 3-star rating, but what really made me rate it 3 stars versus a 2.5 star was the final twist in the book that I really enjoyed. And I was like, oh shit, okay, that's good. I see what you did there. So then I was like, okay, I'll give it a 3 star just because I'm pretty satisfied with the ending of the book. The formatting of this book, it is dual timeline, so you're following them through the 7 days of their trip, but then in the past you're following the 7 hours of the accident. So the 7 hours of what happened during the accident, and then like them trying to like find help after the accident. So I really liked the past timeline more than I liked the present day timeline. Also, in the past timeline, each hour that you're going through is read from a different survivor's point of view, whereas the present day timeline is solely told from our main character's point of view. So I really liked the multi POV in the past, and I just found that part more interesting than what was happening present day. So yeah, I rated this 3 stars. It was okay. I will definitely read another Megan Miranda book because again, I really liked the final twist. So it definitely shows me that she has potential. This one just wasn't my favorite. It just happened to be the one I started by her. The next book I read this month is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. After reading this book, I watched Book and Lala's Literally Dead book club live stream about this book, and during that live stream, I learned that Julia Bartz is the sister to Andrea Bartz, who is another mystery thriller author, and she actually has a book called The Spare Room coming out this month that I desperately want to read. It sounds so good. So I just think that's really cool. 2 sisters writing mystery, thriller, horror novels. In this book, you are following our main character, Alex, and she is a writer, but she is kind of stuck in a dead-end job, not doing what she really loves, and she gets invited to be part of this writing retreat hosted by her favorite horror novelist, Rosa. But at this writing retreat is her ex-best friend, Ren, so they kind of have some drama going on, and that takes up a lot of like the first 50% of the book, and that's really entertaining. But then the last 50% of the book is when it gets utterly chaotic and crazy, and just things are happening one after another, and you can't believe what's happening. Your jaw is on the floor. You're like, what's gonna happen next? How are they gonna get out of the situation? And it is so good. I just ate up every moment of it. I love the craziness, the chaos. Like, I don't care if things come out of left field. Just entertain me. Just make me go, wow, oh my god, what's happening next? Surprise me. And that's exactly what this book did, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up rating it 4 stars, so I think it was a good experience. I do recommend it. I would say like a lot of people I saw in the reviews liked the first 50% of the book and didn't necessarily love the last 50% because it just went utterly chaotic. Me, I'm the opposite. Like, the first 50% of the book, I was like a little bored, but then the last 50% of the book, when everything went off the rails, I was like, here, I was living for it. I was like, okay, let's go. So yeah, I rated this 4 stars. If you want a fun mystery thriller, this would definitely be more fun in the winter time because there is a snowstorm that happens during the book. But honestly, like, you can read things any time of year. Now we're going to be talking about the books that I did not finish this month. Although I don't want to call them full DNFs, we're going to call them DFNs, down for now. It's not DNFs. We're just going to switch the 2 letters around. So the first one is The Guncle by Stephen Raleigh, which is so surprising to me because I was so excited for this book. I could have sworn I was going to rate this book a 5 stars based on the cover, based on the synopsis, based on the tags. I thought this would definitely be a 5-star read for me, but it's like, I can't. So I checked out the audiobook for this. I was on a waiting list for it. It came through, and honestly, this audiobook I had in my Libby app for 2 weeks, because that's like the amount of time you can have it for. I could only get 50% into it in 2 weeks, and I was like, on the last day, I was like, okay, I just gotta binge it. I played it for 10 minutes. I was like, no, can't binge it, can't do it. We're just gonna have to wait. So I put myself back on the waiting list for this audiobook. So whenever it comes in, I feel like I'll be enough time removed from when I listened to it last. I'll be like, okay, we can finish it now. What did I not like about this book? I guess we should start with the synopsis. I mean, I did like the synopsis. That's what drew me to the book, but we'll start with that. In this book, you are following our main character, Patrick, and he is this middle-aged, gay, single man living in Palm Springs, and he's also a former actor, and his brother recently lost his wife, so his sister-in-law recently passed away, and in order to cope with that, his brother turned to drugs, and he needs to go to rehab. So his brother comes to Patrick and is like, hey, I really need you to watch the kids for 90 days while I go into rehab, and Patrick reluctantly agrees to watch the kids, and that's basically what the book's about. It's supposed to be like a feel-good, like, the grumpy old man like turns happy because there's children around and he learns the true meaning of family and love. Sounds cute, sounds fun, but I could not stand it. Like, there's 2 main things I did not like about this book. One, I felt like the kids were super dumbed down. Now, I'm the youngest in my family, so I was always the littlest one. I never was really around a lot of children, so like I can't necessarily say what children are like, but children in this book are so dumb. Like, they are just like, there's this one point where the kid loses his tooth and then Patrick makes a joke like, oh, next you're gonna lose your arm, and the kid's like, what? I'm gonna lose my arm, and he's like crying, and it like, it's a kid that stupid, like what? And it's not even like the kid's that stupid, it's like the author like dumbed down the kids so much. He makes them like aliens from foreign planets. Like, what's a Tesla? Like, you don't know what a Tesla is. Like, you're not in a car every day and you can't look out the window and see what it, like, maybe you don't know the name of it, but like you've seen a Tesla before. They're like, whoa, is this a spaceship? Like, I could not. It was so annoying to me. Like, no. And then also too, like, that was annoying, right? Because like the kids didn't understand like the most common things. It's like they were aliens from another planet. But then he would make all these like 80s pop culture references to these like 9-year-old, 5-year-old children. And they're like, what's that? And he's like, oh my God, you don't know who blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, bro, they were born in like 2010. Why do you think they know? Well, actually 2010. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe 2010. They were born in the 2010s. Okay, why would they know your 80s pop culture references? And I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. My brain, I could not do it. I was like, it's like trying too hard to be funny. It's trying too hard to be like, you know, it's trying too hard. And I could not get more than 50% into it. I do want to pick it up again in the future. When that library loan comes through, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm definitely the outlier opinion because this has a super high rating on Goodreads. So, you know, there's that. And then the last book that I DNF'd this month, the last book I did not finish this month, might be a bit surprising, might be a bit not surprising by the author, but based on the reviews I've seen on this book, not so surprising. So what is it? It is the Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. This is secret project number 2. I was reading this on my Kindle. I got 30% into the book and I couldn't do it anymore. They actually have the audiobook for this on Hoopla. So if you have access to Hoopla, they have the audiobook there if you want to listen to it. I tried to binge the audiobook yesterday because we had yesterday was May 31st. I was like, okay, like I'm working today. I could just binge the audiobook while I'm working and then I'll have it for my wrap up. No. Similar to the Guncle, got 10 minutes into it and I was like, there's no way. Like, I just can't do it. Even though I went from physically reading it to the audiobook, I just couldn't do it. Okay. I did not care. I did not care in the slightest. In this book, you are following our main character and he wakes up in medieval England and he has total amnesia. He has no idea who he is, where he is, but he does realize that he's in a medieval time period. Like, he knows he's from modern day, but he doesn't know why he's there, what's going on. So it's about him going on this journey to figure out who he is. Why is he there? Does he have some sort of mission there? Like, what's going on? And although it takes place in the past, there is like a sci-fi element, like a futuristic sci-fi element to it. And that was just kind of like, it was just like a little too like opposite ends. And I didn't really like how that all went together. And also I didn't really care about any of the characters. Like, I feel like when you don't know who a character is, it's like hard, I guess, to really get to know them and then care about them as a character. And yeah, I couldn't do it. Also too, I think I'm gonna wait to finish this book once I get my physical copy in, because I was reading the Kindle version, and the thing about these secret projects, when you bought them through the Kickstarter and you get the Kindle versions of these books, they're not properly formatted in the sense where you don't have any page numbers, so I can't even tell you like what specific chapter I'm on. I can't tell you what page I'm on. Well, I guess I could tell you the chapter I'm on, but I can't tell you what page I'm on out of how many pages there are in the book. Like, it doesn't tell you that. It tells you like on your Kindle, like, oh, you have blah 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 minutes left in your chapter, you are at 29% into this book, but it doesn't tell you the page numbers. And I'm someone who's like, especially for a book like that I'm not necessarily enjoying, like, I need to see the page count. I need to know how much longer I have left. So I think the physical book is going to be the way to go for me to finish that one. But yeah, if you guys have read Secret Project number 2, please tell me your thoughts and feelings. Convince me to read it down below, because I'm just not feeling it so far. And now I need your guys' help, because I was obsessed with Carissa Broadbent in May, okay? I read 3 of her books. I utterly obsessed with the world, and I'm so sad I don't get to revisit that world till next year. So I'm going to tell you the series that I have on my bookshelves, and you're going to comment down below and tell me which is most similar to Carissa Broadbent, because that's what I'm going to read. Because I'm not trying to read things that aren't on my physical TBR. So I have the first book in the Cruel Prince series. I have All the Throne of Glass. I have Akatar. I have Crescent City, I have Shadow and Bone, and I think that's all the fantasy series that I have, besides just like starting books. But those are all my completed series, although Cruel Prince, I only have the first book. I also have Caraval on my Kindle, and I have the Total Red Queen series. So if any of those series sound similar to anything Carissa Broadbent, please let me know, because I want to read more by her, but I'm also really trying to crack down on my physical TBR in June. So if you can tell me something similar to that I already own, please let me know down below. And I will talk to you in the next one. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!